So let's add the thumbnails into the column 1 div inside the left div. So first insert your cursor and make sure you've got it inside column 1. We'll use the insert image icon. In your My Leaves folder, you have a folder called Thumbnails, and the first one we want is Solo. So this is the small version of that solo image. You want to enter some alt text. Click OK. And let's just separate these with returns. So when I hit enter, or the return key here, notice that the image jumped down a little bit. That's because Dreamweaver added a paragraph tag around it. And now if I insert another image, this time I want the one called Song. You see it's in place, and if I use the arrow key, I can deselect the image, the return key to get the space, insert the third image, which is called Sound. And I've now got 3 thumbnails here on the left, and I can kind of click and drag to push them into place and see if I can get them to line up this way. But I'll show you in a moment a more precise way to do this, again using the Properties Inspector. First, let's go ahead and get the thumbnails in column 2. So I'll just do this quickly. The first one is Edgar. Again, deselecting the image with the right arrow key and hitting return. Then I want Moon. And finally, Wrong Turn. Did you ever feel like you took a wrong turn trying to learn all this web design stuff? I hope not. There we go. So now I have 6 thumbnails in 2 columns, and what I want to do is position them side by side so that they line up as perfectly as possible. So one thing I can do is to resize the width of these divs based on the elements that are inside them. So I know that these images are slightly different sizes. The widest one here is 68 pixels. And these images are slightly different sizes. Looks like the widest one here is about 83 pixels. So let's give them both just a little breathing room. Let's set column 1 to 70 pixels wide. And let's set column 2 to 85 pixels wide. So just slightly larger than the largest image that's inside it. And let's make these both the same length. And I figured out that 280 would be a pretty good length for both of these. So I'll just resize them both to 280. So now we have 2 divs that are the same height as one another, and that'll help us position them more evenly. And if we really want to be precise about this overall layout, we could use a little math again and precisely calculate where these should be positioned. But before we do that, let me do one other little thing. Because these divs are a little bigger than the images, and because in the design they're centered relative to each other, let me refine the style for each of these divs to include centering. So the first one here, Call 1, if I go over to my CSS Styles panel and I select Call 1, you can change the style of an AP div just like you would change any other div. So I can just double-click and open the CSS rule definition. And then in the block category, I can use Text Align Center to position all of these in the center of that div. And I'll do that for both divs. So now Call 2, double-click. In the block category, Text Align Center. OK. Now I'm ready to use a little math, a little science, get this page exactly the way I wanted. Because as I've mentioned before, working with style sheets is an art and a science.